Good morning, executives and key employees of Azora Finance Group. Today I'll be discussing 4 critical topics that will aid the company in understanding how the economy works and how consumers think, allowing the company to make reasonable and strategic decisions that will ensure that the company and society's futures are bright. Now let's dive in. The first topic is the macroeconomy and understanding the business cycle. To begin, let's define 3 key macroeconomic indicators. The first indicator, gross domestic production, or GDP for short, is the total market value of all finished goods produced in a country during a specific period, typically within a year. It is the main indicator for economic growth and is used to assess whether an economy is experiencing growth or recession. The second indicator, inflation, is the growth in the overall level of prices of products and services in an economy. It is typically measured through the Consumer Price Index, which measures changes in price level of products and services that consumers purchase over time. The final indicator, unemployment, is where an individual is not currently employed and is seeking a job, however is unable to fill up a position. Unemployment is measured through the unemployment rate, which is the percentage of the labor force who want to work but are unable to find jobs. These 3 key macroeconomic indicators provide insight into the business cycle as they determine the state an economy is in. When GDP rises, unemployment is low, and inflation remains steady, it indicates expansion. When GDP declines, the rate of unemployment rises, and the rate of inflation decreases, it indicates contraction. When the growth of GDP slows, the rate of employment is becoming optimal, and inflation rises, it indicates a peak in the business cycle. When the growth of GDP stops or declines, the rate of unemployment is high, and inflation typically decreases, indicates a trough in the business cycle, also known as a recession. Understanding general economic conditions and the business cycle is necessary for Azora Finance Group, as it will help the company make informed decisions that will lead to benefits and mitigate risks. For example, in areas of expansion, Azora can take on growth opportunities such as investing in new infrastructure and projects as costs remain steady, and in areas of contraction, Azora must set out strict lending requirements to mitigate the risk of businesses not paying off their loans. Now the second topic is tariffs and trade war. Due to Trump's recent introduction of tariffs, both Australia and the US will experience short-run changes in their economies. This is demonstrated through the aggregate demand and aggregate supply model. For the Australian economy, the short-run aggregate supply shifts to the left. The Australian economy experiences supply chain disruptions which increases the price level. The aggregate demand also shifts to the left because net exports decrease. This is due to US individuals demanding Australian products less as it is too costly to import them, and they instead choose to seek cheaper domestic alternatives. This leads to a decrease in the price level as Australian business owners lower their product prices to stimulate more sales. For the US economy, the short-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand also both shift to the left for similar reasons. The short-run aggregate supply shifts to the left as production costs increase for US businesses due to Australian imported supplies being taxed. This increases the price level. The aggregate demand shifts to the left as the high product costs force businesses to have high selling prices, which US consumers are unlikely to purchase at. This leads to a decrease in price level as US businesses also lower their product prices to stimulate more sales. Aside from the direct impact on the Australian business environment associated with the tariffs placed on Australian exports to the US, global tariffs and trade wars involving other countries can also lead to other impacts on the Australian business environment. These impacts include lower demand to take out loans as global economies become unpredictable and businesses are less likely to seek money to expand operations, and changes to lending requirements, as businesses who need money and have higher production costs struggle to pay off loans. Azora must carefully examine economic conditions and monitor loan demand so that it can allocate money to more active parts of their operations. Azora must also set out strict lending requirements to businesses who need money to minimize the risk of them not being able to pay off their loans. Now the third topic is insights from behavioral economics. Let's look at how we can use behavioral economics to understand why individuals choose to eat unhealthy foods, even when they prefer to eat healthier alternatives. Unlike traditional economic models which assume that individuals make rational decisions that take costs and optimal benefits into consideration, Behavioral economics looks at how cognitive bias and society can influence people's decision making. In this case, eating unhealthy food over healthier preferences can be because of status quo bias, present bias, and societal influence. For status quo bias, decision makers tend to stick to a default option, meaning that if someone has already been eating unhealthy food in the past, they are likely to stick to their habits and ignore healthier preferences. Unhealthy foods also trigger present bias as individuals value instant gratification over long-term effects. Society can also influence individuals in eating unhealthy food, whereas seen on social media, 17% of unhealthy food advertisements viewed by children at the ages of 7 to 16 were embedded in celebrity content aiming to convince children to purchase food. If an individual was to use traditional economic models, they would look at the most beneficial food option for their health and look at the most cost-valuable option, instead of being influenced by these biases. Now the final topic, topic 4, is developments in AI and implications for inequality in the labour market. The effect of AI on the skilled labour market would be an increase in demand. The demand shifts to the right as AI boosts the productivity of skilled workers, leading to businesses looking to hire more skilled workers. Looking at the skilled labour graph, the wage level increases as businesses increase wages to attract productive skilled workers into job positions. The increase in job attraction then leads to the quantity of skilled workers in the skilled labour market to increase as more individuals are accepting the high wage jobs. The effect of AI on the unskilled labour market would be a decrease in demand. The demand shifts to the left as AI substitutes unskilled workers because it can complete their jobs, leading to businesses demanding unskilled workers less. Looking at unskilled labour graph, the wage level decreases. This then leads to the quantity of unskilled workers in the unskilled labour market to decrease as they're becoming unemployed and replaced. Both the skilled and unskilled labour market graphs suggest that the use of AI would increase the wage inequality between skilled and unskilled workers. This is due to wages of skilled workers increasing because of their boosted productivity and demand, and wages of unskilled workers decreasing because of their substitute and their skills are no longer worth decent pay. That's all. Thank you for listening, and I hope I've provided Azora with knowledge and tips on how economies function under different conditions, and that Azora can now plan for a bright future.